He found the divorce papers she never filed. For 10 years he believed they were unshakable. 10 years of waking up beside the same woman, sharing coffee in the mornings, laughing at the same old inside jokes, and trusting her with every part of his life. But trust has a way of hiding its own cracks. It happened on a night that should have meant nothing. No arguments, no tension, just the quiet comfort of routine. She was upstairs, humming to herself as she brushed her hair. He was in the bedroom, looking for a charger. He opened the wrong drawer. That's when he saw it. A plain, sealed envelope, buried beneath old receipts, a frayed scarf, and a passport she hadn't touched in years. His name was on it. So was hers. In the seconds before he opened it, his mind ran through 1,000 possibilities. A love letter, a forgotten bill, something she'd meant to give him years ago. But the truth was nothing like that. Inside were divorce papers. Not new, not fresh, signed and dated 3 years earlier. And here's the part that would haunt him the most. She never left. Not once. She stayed. She smiled. She kissed him goodnight. She planned holidays. She made love to him as if nothing had changed. This is the story of a marriage built on love, shadowed by a secret. And the moment one man learned that the life he thought he was living was never quite his at all. Daniel met Leah in college, not through some dramatic, movie-like twist, but the way many great stories begin, quietly. Daniel was the kind of man people trusted without question. Steady. Patient. The friend who showed up on moving day, the brother who never forgot a birthday, the partner who listened more than he spoke. He believed in keeping his word, and in building a life brick by brick, never rushing, never cutting corners. To everyone who knew him, Daniel was the safe place you could always come home to. He first noticed Leah in a philosophy lecture, then in the campus cafe, then again sitting on the same bench outside the library. Two strangers who kept crossing paths, the same quiet way of existing just beneath the noise. At first, it was nothing more than polite nods. Then, a comment about the professor's shoes, a shared laugh, a conversation that outlasted the coffee. Childhood memories. Favorite books. Fears they didn't usually share with anyone. They didn't rush. There was no whirlwind romance. Just two people choosing, day by day, to stay in each other's orbit. Dates were simple. Sandwiches in the park. Nights spent cooking pasta in a too-small kitchen. Long walks under streetlights when the rest of the city was asleep. By the time they graduated together, they'd already built a rhythm, a life that felt both exciting and safe. Graduation wasn't just an ending. It was the quiet promise of a future they both wanted. They moved in together soon after, not as a test, but as the next natural step. They filled their first apartment with mismatched furniture, hand-me-down plates, and inside jokes scribbled on sticky notes left on the fridge. 2 years passed. Careers began to take shape. Their days were full but steady. Work, dinner, laughter, sleep, repeat. And in all that time, Daniel knew he wanted Leah in every chapter of his life. He just waited for the right moment. The proposal wasn't grand. No flash mobs. No exotic trips. Just Daniel, in their living room, holding a small ring in trembling hands. Leah said yes before he even finished asking. From then on, they became that couple. The one friends envied. The one family pointed to as proof that love could be simple and lasting. Leah was calm and steady, the anchor in every storm. Daniel was loyal to his core, the kind of man who kept every promise he ever made. Looking back now, those early days feel almost unreal, like a photograph left too long in the sun. Still beautiful, but slowly fading. By their 3rd year of marriage, something small began to change. Not in a way that would have been obvious to anyone else. Leah still laughed at his jokes, still asked about his day. But Daniel noticed the pauses. The way her gaze sometimes drifted past him when they were talking, as if her mind was somewhere far away. She still said, "I love you," every morning before work, but sometimes it sounded like she was saying it on autopilot. A phrase she knew by heart but no longer felt the need to think about. Daniel told himself it was nothing, that this was normal, that every marriage has seasons, some warm, some cold, and maybe this was just a quieter season. But by year 5, the quiet had grown louder. Leah worked late more often. She began canceling dinner plans they'd made weeks earlier, sometimes with just a short text, "Sorry, still at the office." When she came home, she was polite, tired, and apologetic, always quick to hug him, always promising they'd make it up on the weekend. And she always did. Birthdays were perfect. Anniversaries were flawless. Leah still planned candlelit dinners, still gave gifts that showed she knew him better than anyone else. Those nights felt like the proof Daniel needed that everything was fine, that the love was still there. But the in-between days told a different story. She spoke less at breakfast. Some evenings, she would retreat to the bedroom early, claiming she needed to catch up on emails or get some extra sleep. The warmth between them flickered like a candle in a draft. Daniel reminded himself, people change, jobs get harder, stress builds. She wasn't distant because she stopped loving him. She was just tired. He was sure of it. And then, one night, something shifted. It was a Thursday. Daniel came home earlier than usual. Leah was curled up on the couch, scrolling on her phone. The television played softly in the background. As he walked past, she tilted the phone slightly away, just enough to block his view. Then, without meeting his eyes, she pressed the lock button. He'd never seen her do that before. She looked up at him and smiled. The same smile she'd worn for years. But now, it felt different. Measured, like it was there to hide something. Daniel smiled back, but inside, something unsettled had taken root. That night, as they lay in bed, Leah fell asleep quickly. Daniel stared at the ceiling, listening to her slow, steady breathing. And for the first time in their marriage, he wondered what, exactly, she was keeping from him. Daniel had always believed that trust was the foundation of love. That respect meant never crossing certain lines. He never looked through Leah's phone, never asked to see her messages, never questioned the moments when she turned away mid-text or slipped her phone face down on the counter. In his mind, that was what a good husband did. You gave space. You believed without proof. When Leah said she had late meetings, he didn't push. When she mentioned weekend trips for work training, he offered to drop her at the station to help pack her bag. She always smiled, kissed his cheek, and told him not to worry. And he didn't, not really, because he thought giving her space was the same thing as giving her love. Some nights, she'd come home hours later than expected. She'd slide into bed quietly, her back to him, and say she was exhausted. Daniel would nod in the dark, telling himself she just needed rest, that tomorrow she'd be herself again. When she told him she needed a little time for herself, Daniel took it as a sign of her independence, something he admired. He never realized it might be something else entirely. He thought protecting the relationship meant never asking hard questions. But what Daniel couldn't see was that every moment he stayed silent, every time he let the questions pass, he was being kept in the dark. Not out of kindness, not out of love, but because the truth was a door she didn't want him to open. And he, without knowing it, was guarding that door for her. It happened on a night that should have meant nothing. No arguments, no tension, just the quiet comfort of routine. Leah was upstairs, humming softly as she brushed her hair. Daniel could hear it faintly from the bedroom, a familiar, comforting sound he'd heard 1,000 times before. He was looking for his charger, not in a rush, not thinking about anything but the low battery icon on his phone. He opened the dresser drawer where he was sure it would be, but it wasn't there. He pushed aside a folded scarf, its fabric still faintly carrying her perfume. Beneath it, a stack of receipts, a crumpled postcard, the corner of a frayed envelope. And then his hand brushed against wood. Not smooth, not part of the drawer. A panel, slightly raised, waiting. He pressed. A quiet click. The sound was small, but in the stillness, it might as well have been a gunshot. A hidden compartment. The latch was loose. It wasn't locked. He hesitated for a moment, his fingers hovering over it. Then, without thinking, he pressed lightly against the edge. The panel gave way with a quiet click. Inside was a shallow space. Just a few things at first glance. Nothing remarkable. A handful of old receipts, folded small. A small velvet pouch with a broken clasp. And at the very back, a plain white box. On the lid, written in her unmistakable handwriting, were their initials. Side by side. Daniel's heartbeat quickened. He reached for the box, feeling the weight of it in his hands. It wasn't heavy, but it felt deliberate, like whatever was inside had been waiting. He lifted the lid. Beneath a stack of faded photographs, pictures from years earlier, of trips they'd taken, moments they'd shared, was a single sealed envelope. His name was on it. So was hers. Daniel's fingers felt cold as he broke the seal. The paper inside was thick. Official. Divorce papers. Drawn up 3 years ago. Signed by her. Unsigned by him. He sat there for a long moment, staring at the date, the familiar loops of her signature. The room felt smaller. The air heavier. She had been planning to leave him, and he never saw it coming. That night, Daniel doesn't sleep. The papers lie on the nightstand beside him, heavy in a way that has nothing to do with their weight. Every time he closes his eyes, he sees the date. 3 years ago, he sees her signature, and he hears the sound of her humming upstairs just minutes before he found them. He sits up in bed, switching on the lamp. Slowly, he picks up the envelope again. He rereads every line, scanning for something. A note, a reason, a clue hidden in the language of legal formality. But there's nothing. Just facts, just finality. A decision made without him, and then buried. By the time the sky begins to lighten, Daniel's hands are trembling. From exhaustion, from anger, from the cold realization that the life he thought they'd been building might have been crumbling for years without his notice. When Leah comes into the kitchen that morning, still in her robe, her hair pulled back, Daniel is already sitting at the table, the envelope is in front of him. She stops when she sees it. For a moment her face is unreadable. Then, a flicker of shock, quickly followed by something else. Silence. Daniel's voice is low, almost steady, but his fingers are tight against the table edge. Why didn't you just leave? Leah looks at him. Her lips part as if she might answer, but she doesn't. The seconds stretch. The only sound is the faint clink of the spoon in her coffee cup as she sets it down. She sits across from him. Her eyes drop to the envelope. And still, she says nothing. Daniel doesn't look away. The papers are between them on the table, silent proof of something he never imagined. The inked date stares back at him, a reminder that this decision, this betrayal, was made years ago and hidden. Tell me, he says quietly, the words almost breaking on the way out. Why? Leah's gaze doesn't waver. She doesn't fumble for excuses. Her voice is steady, almost unnervingly so. Yes, she says, I had an affair. That's why I drafted them. The sound of her words seems to hollow out the room. Daniel feels it hit everywhere at once, in his chest, in his stomach, in his throat. A heat rises in him, but it's not anger alone. It's humiliation. 10 years of loyalty, undone in a single confession. He swallows hard, trying to find his own voice. But before he can speak, she continues. I never filed them because I fell back in love with you. Daniel blinks slowly as if he's trying to make sense of the sentence. It feels like a riddle with no right answer. She says she ended the affair years ago, that his patience, his loyalty, His quiet, constant love pulled her back, that she realized what they had was worth holding on to. But to Daniel, the words feel like a gift wrapped around a knife. His voice is quiet, almost shaking now. While I gave you my trust, you gave me a second choice. Leah's eyes glass over. She reaches for his hand across the table, but he pulls back slightly, the distance between them now measured in more than inches. Do you know what it feels like? He says slowly, each word deliberate, to be plan B in your own marriage. Her tears spill over. She nods faintly, as though admitting something she can't undo. The sound of her crying fills the space between them. Uneven, raw. But Daniel's eyes stay fixed on the papers. His jaw is tight. He can't cry. Not now. Maybe not ever. In his mind, memories loop. Anniversaries where she held him close, the way she'd laugh at something he said, the way she'd lean her head on his shoulder on quiet nights. Now, each moment feels like a photograph with something ugly hidden just outside the frame. Were those nights real, or were they her way of making peace with her guilt? Daniel moved out within a week, not out of hate, but out of heartbreak. He didn't yell. He didn't beg. He simply couldn't share the same air with Leah without feeling the weight of the unspoken years pressing down on him. His new apartment was small, bare, and quiet. Too quiet. Nights stretched on endlessly, and mornings felt like starting a race he didn't remember signing up for. In therapy, he began to piece together a timeline. The distance between them, it hadn't started with the affair. It had started long before. Leah had been gone in little ways, even when she was right beside him. Weeks later, an envelope arrived. Her handwriting, no return address. Inside was a letter. In it, she confessed to something Daniel hadn't expected. A few years earlier, before the affair, Leah had lost her job. Not a casual position. The job she'd built her career on, the one she loved. She didn't tell him. Instead, she pretended everything was fine, leaving the house each morning, working late, on projects that didn't exist. She wrote that she was ashamed, afraid he'd see her differently, afraid he'd think less of her. And every day she carried that secret, she built another layer of distance between them. The affair, she admitted, wasn't about love. It was about escape. From her failure, from her shame, from the version of herself she couldn't face. She stayed in the marriage because, deep down, she wanted to find her way back to him. But in the process, she lost herself even more. Her final words lingered with him, long after he put the letter down. I didn't leave, because a part of me always knew we were worth finding again. Daniel read the letter twice, then a third time, and each time he wasn't sure if it made the truth any easier to bear or harder. In the weeks that followed, Daniel and Leah tried couples therapy. They sat side by side in a small room, answering questions neither of them had been brave enough to ask each other before. But it was too late. The cracks ran too deep. The silences between words spoke louder than anything they said aloud. One evening, Daniel told her he needed space. Not to punish her, not to run away, but to breathe. Leah didn't fight it. She just nodded, her hands folded tightly in her lap. They agreed on time apart. Days turned into weeks, weeks into months, and before either of them realized it, a year had passed. Daniel healed differently. He traveled, small trips at first, then longer ones. He kept a journal, writing down the thoughts he couldn't say out loud. He rebuilt himself piece by piece, learning who he was without the weight of their history. Leah healed in her own way. She never asked him to come back. She didn't write letters, didn't send long explanations. But one evening, nearly a year to the day since they'd last spoken face to face, Daniel's phone lit up with a message from her. It was short, just one line. Thank you for loving me even when I couldn't love myself. Daniel stared at it for a long time. Then he put the phone down. And for the first time in years, he felt something close to peace. Looking back now, I understand things I couldn't see then. Love without honesty is just performance, a script you both agree to follow, even when the story has already ended. And silence. Silence is its own kind of betrayal. It doesn't leave marks you can see, but it changes you all the same. If I could go back, I'd ask the hard questions sooner. I wouldn't confuse keeping the peace with keeping the love alive, because she didn't need saving. She needed space, and I needed the truth. I've stopped thinking of myself as a victim. I'm not. But I was collateral damage in someone else's quiet war. A war she was fighting inside herself long before I ever knew it existed. Some endings don't come with slammed doors or shouted words. Sometimes they happen quietly, in the spaces between what's said and what's left unspoken. Daniel's story reminds us that love can survive many storms, distance, mistakes, even betrayal, but it cannot survive in the dark. When trust is replaced by silence, when the truth is replaced by performance, what you're holding on to may look like love, but it's only the shadow of it. For years, Daniel believed that protecting his marriage meant protecting its peace. He thought that giving space was the same as giving love. But space without honesty isn't love. It's distance. And distance has a way of growing until you can't find your way back. If someone you love is holding something back, you have to ask why. And if you're the one left in the dark, you have to face the harder truth that sometimes keeping the peace means losing yourself. Because in the end, truth hurts far less than the years spent believing a lie. So we ask you, if it were you, your life, your trust, your marriage, would you fight for it, or would you walk away forever? Your answer might be the one thing someone watching right now needs to hear. Share your thoughts in the comments below. Your words might help someone who's living their own version of this story right now. This has been another true life story from True Life Mistake Stories, where we share the real, the raw, and the unforgettable moments that change lives forever. If Daniel's story moved you, make sure to like this video, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss the next chapter in someone's truth. Thanks for watching. The end.